Hi everyone, I'm Nicole Willette and I'm here with Carla Tanguay of Modulations Therapies here in Bar Harbor, but also serving a lot of the state of Maine. And we'll get into why that is in a second. But basically, Carla's a music therapist and I just admire the crap out of the way you've been marketing yourself. So thanks for coming in and being willing to talk to people about how you market a pretty cool service that I don't think a lot of people understand.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me, Nicole.
Yeah. So I get that you probably went to college and thought like, oh, I want to study music or whatever. But what made you decide to open your own music therapy practice, which I feel like is probably a lot different than how a lot of musical therapists work, which they work for, right? Probably typically like a school or like a hospital's network or something like that.
Right. So I did get my degree in music therapy, and I did work for a large healthcare organization for the first 12 years of my career.
Yeah.
I was part of a large department. There were 12 music therapists, all working in one organization together, which was such an amazing way to kind of grow up in the field. Yeah. Supported by so many other fabulous clinicians.
Yeah.
So I did that for a while. I was actually recruited to come to Maine to work for MDI Hospital to develop a music therapy program at Birch Bay Village and their Strauss Center. So I went from a large healthcare organization to a smaller one.
And you were the only one also.
Yes. Suddenly I was in a state that had less music therapists in the entire state than we had in my department in Florida.
Wait, so how many are there in the
state?
There
are 7 board-certified music therapists in the state of Maine.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So, once I moved to Maine, I saw the opportunity and the need for music therapy services kind of throughout the lifespan in our communities. So we hired another music therapist for Birch Bay Village and MDI Hospital, and I went out and started a private practice so that I could really expand and develop the field and bring the service to more clients here.
So how long ago was that?
That was 2 years ago.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So I feel like I've been seeing your name forever. And I feel like you were even doing stuff before that, like in the community.
Certainly, yeah. When you're one of 7 people in a profession in a state, part of your identity is advocacy for your profession and education. So certainly, even when I was with the hospital organization, that was certainly part of what I was doing, is trying to bring education and awareness to our community about what it is that music therapy can do.
Right. So I think a lot of people, they struggle with promoting their product or service, especially though if it has a component like yours does of educating people, because it can take a while for people to understand what you do and what you don't do and kind of how it could work for them. So what are some of the things that you found helpful sort of entering a new market and then also like educating some people on a completely new service that probably didn't even exist to them in their minds before?
Right. So like you said, education and advocacy are key. And so I think one of the first things that's important to do is to establish credibility as a professional in the community. So I was lucky in that I was with a well-known and well-respected healthcare organization first. So I had developed a lot of relationships with different other nonprofit organizations before I went off into private practice myself. So they were aware that, wow, there is this kind of leading healthcare institution in our community that has identified music therapy as something valuable. So that was great. That was a great way to kind of help establish credibility. To be passionate about your field,
So does that mean like having a conversation like in the grocery store?
Right. It means everywhere you go, you're representing your field, which of course has benefits and downsides in a small town. You're kind of never just yourself. You're always kind of representing your profession and your field.
So if you were working, if let's say somebody was starting a new service and they didn't have, weren't starting with an organization, because I know, but I feel like that you're also, I feel like I've seen you go out and do presentations and things like that. How did you figure out what things that you should do first and what you should put your energy into? Because it takes a lot of work to start something new.
So you need to figure out where your customers are and then find a way to get in front of them. So who is your client base? Is your client base moms? Is your client base, people who need computer services? Who is your target client, and then where do they congregate? So is it the Rotary Club? Is it a mom's group? Or is it a business association? So I just try to figure out, okay, who are my potential clients and how do I get in front of them? You
Yeah.
know, so for me, it's the libraries, the YMCA, the Rotary Club,
Yeah.
moms groups, play groups, in order to just educate them and let them know about services. So it's reaching the clients, but it's also reaching the decision makers in organizations as well. So my business is both direct to consumer and to business.
Yes. Yep.
You know, so a lot of what I do, about 50% of what I do is contracts with organizations, healthcare and educational organizations. So I also need to try to reach the decision makers in those organizations.
How do you do that?
That's where the credibility and the relationship building are really key.
So you get like maybe somebody to help make an introduction, or you kind of hear about an RFP that's coming down the pike because you're kind of in the know.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like so many of the skills that a therapist has translate into the skills that you need to build a business and build relationships, you know, because really what you're doing is you're assessing what does an organization need, right? So what are their weaknesses, what are their strengths, what are their identified problems? So it's the same thing that we do in therapy. We call it assessment.
Yep.
And
that's the first thing you do?
And that's the first thing you do when you meet with an organization. You need to say, okay, what are your strengths? What is it that you need help with? And what are your goals? What are you working towards? And then you say, well, this is how I can help you. This is what I can bring to the table. Again, same thing that you would do in therapy. You would work with the client to develop a plan for, okay, this is the problem. This is how we're going to get there. You implement that plan. You continuously evaluate how are we doing on that plan. What do we need to tweak? And then you come to a point where hopefully you've met your goals and you say, well, that's great. Do you have the tools you need to go out on your own now? Or are we going to continue to work together, just shifting our goals a little bit? So it really models the same things that you would do as a therapist. You're kind of bringing a lot of the same skills to your relationships with organizations.
Because I assume too the nature of your work is like you're working with someone for a set thing, and once the problem is solved or once the issue is resolved, you know, so a lot of your stuff I'm sure is getting new people too. Getting in front of new people all the time.
It's true, for many clients, the goal is for them to graduate from therapy, for them to develop the skills they need to continue on their own. So yes, continuing to marketing and business development is a continuous process that never ends.
Yeah. Now, what's something you feel like because I know, like you said, you're really great about talking to groups, you're really great at talking to individuals about what this is and what this isn't. What do you think is a common misconception about music therapy that like somebody is watching this blog watching this video, and they're thinking about marketing their business, and even if it's not music therapy, what's a common misconception about music therapy that you can clear up for them?
Oh, well, I think that you have to be a musician to benefit from music therapy. There's no musical background needed. People might think that music therapy is about being a better musician or making great music. And the goal of music therapy is actually not the music. In music therapy, we're using music as a tool to reach non-musical goals. So we're working on other things, physical goals, cognitive goals, rehabilitation goals, and music is just our tool.
Yeah. Can you give like an example? Like maybe the one you talked to me about earlier today?
Sure. So I worked with a client who had a stroke and was aphasic after the stroke, meaning he was having a difficult time finding words and stringing words together. So we used a neurologic music therapy technique where he learned to speak rhythmically in time to a metronome and to break down his syllables to the beat of a metronome. That recruits different parts of your brain than when you would speak without that rhythmic cue. So he was able to do that and learn to speak more fluently again, to slow down and order his speech. And then slowly what we did was we would take away that cue, and he was able to have a lot of success with that technique.
That's cool. Yeah, and that's so neat.
Yeah, you know, music, it really recruits different parts of your brain than some of the other things that we do. So, you know, I've even had clients who can sing but can't speak because singing and speaking use different parts of your brain.
That's so cool. Yeah. And are they able to get to speaking by slowly taking out elements of...
Certainly not all the time, but it is a technique that's very successful with a lot of people. I mean, it's actually a technique that was used with Gabby Giffords. She was the congresswoman who was shot. And the bullet damaged her language center in her brain. Your language center of your brain is really a very localized function. So she wasn't able to speak, but she was able to sing. So the speech therapist and the music therapist worked together with her in order to first get her singing and then slowly drop out kind of the melodic parts and the rhythmic parts of singing and then get her speech functioning again.
That's so cool. Yeah. Now, something that you probably get a lot, and I get a lot as a service provider, is people think it's either really expensive or they feel weird about asking how much it costs or how it works. How do you let people know that you're accessible but also get paid what you're worth?
Right.
I feel like that's like a really fine line that we all walk as service providers.
Of course, it's definitely a challenge. You know, my costs are in line with other therapies that you would access.
That's a good way to say it too. Right. People have experience with other therapies.
Right. Yeah. Right. And then, you know, I do recognize though that cost is a barrier to a lot of people. So I try to work with them on creative ways to access other funding. There are several organizations in our community that have said that they would be willing to sponsor kind of a scholarship to pay for therapies for a family who is in need. There are several grants throughout New England that cover certain therapies for certain populations.
Right, and you can point them in that direction.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's a great way to mitigate it. And now do you ever do things like in groups, like classes or something like that, so that you can charge each person a little bit less money?
Exactly. Yep. That's another technique that we use.
That's cool.
Yeah. And then I work again with a lot of organizations. We might be applying for a grant in order to bring the services to that organization.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, in terms of your online marketing stuff, just out of curiosity, like how do you decide how to spend the limited time that you have to do your own marketing?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important to maintain a website that really gives a picture of your service and what you provide.
Okay.
I do have a blog on my website.
Oh, cool.
It's at www.modulationstherapies.com. You know, again, I think it's important for people to feel like they have a sense of the person that they're going to be working with.
Yeah. Well, and also that they understand what they're buying, that they feel they're in that decision-making powerful situation. Now, do you do like social media or anything? Because that's the other thing too. I'm sure it's difficult. You can't really talk about your clients. You can just say, I have a client because of, you know, your, I guess, confidentiality stuff as a therapist, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
So how do you? Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So I do maintain social media accounts.
Okay.
And then, you know, when I start working with a client, we talk about confidentiality. We talk about our social media policy.
Yeah.
And keeping those things.
You have a social media policy
for clients,
so
right?
Good.
That, you know, that I wouldn't friend a client on social media. And that there's no expectation that they like my Facebook page. You know, because that confidentiality, of course, is really important.
That's so good. I think a lot of people think of social media policies as just for like people within their organization, like just, you know, that they work with. They don't think about doing it with somebody that, like a customer or something like that. But that makes a lot of sense with what you do, because I'm sure you have, that's so cool. So like you give them the social media policy and you're just like, hey, this is how it could work.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Oh, that's great. So you've got the blog, you've got the social media, email newsletter. Do you do one of those?
I do a newsletter.
Cool.
Yeah, I do a newsletter as well. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you find that you get kind of the most bang for your buck from? If you could only do one, if you like somehow all the other tools were taken away from you.
Right. Honestly, it's word of mouth.
Yeah.
Word of mouth, relationship building is key.
And I guess all those tools sort of help with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, they're going to hear about you through a friend, and then they're going to go to your website to find out more information.
Yeah. So maybe your blog probably would be like, yeah. And I'm sure you can tell too, like kind of what things people are interested in by like what they're looking at, and, you know, what they're sharing and all that. Yeah. That's really cool. Was there anything else that you wanted to definitely talk about before we head out today? All right. So what I'll do is I'll link to Carla's website / blog, to her social media accounts and things like that. Is that the best place to learn more about you?
That is.
Nice. So thanks for watching. And
thanks everyone.
Yeah. Thanks for coming in. Yeah. All right. See you guys soon.